far as the retail price of these tablets, it's going to be $699 for the Tab S8, it's $899 for the Tab S8 Plus, and then $1099 for the Tab S8 Ultra. So when it comes to choosing between these three tablets, it's honestly going to depend on what you plan on doing and where you plan on doing this stuff. So hopefully this video can help you decide which one will benefit you the most. And as far as the hardware and the design, all three of them are going to be pretty much exactly the same look, same feel, same premium materials. And as far as the weight, I'm pretty sure on paper the Tab S8 is the lightest of the three, and then the Tab S8 Ultra is the heaviest of the three. But there's such small subtle differences in weight that they feel exactly the same. And the Plus and the Ultra do a really good job of distributing the weight throughout the tablet that it feels very light for what it is. And all three of them are pretty thin. I think the Tab S8 is actually probably the thickest of all three, but you can't really tell. Honestly, all three of them are pretty much the exact same when it comes to design and hardware. And you also get USB-C on all three of them. You get the micro SD card slot on all three of them so you can expand the storage. You get the power button and the volume rocker in the exact same spot, which I'll get to in a difference here in a second. Then you also get the same placement on the S Pen on the back with the glossy charger and spot, which by the way, you get the S Pen on all three devices in the box, which is nice. At the bottom, you also have your connector for the keyboards, which by the way, you can connect a couple different keyboards as far as I know. For the first party Samsung keyboards, you get a one-piece slim keyboard, which basically is just a one piece. You connect it, you get a small keyboard with no trackpad. It's kind of useful. I think it's a good keyboard case if you plan on not using the keyboard as much. You can prop up your tablet easily. It doesn't keep the S Pen secure on the back, has a little spot inside. That's pretty much it. Then you also have the option to use a regular book cover keyboard, which basically is a two-piece. One piece is the actual keyboard, which is attachable and detachable, and then the back cover, which basically allows you to prop up the tablet easily with pretty much at any angle for the most part. Also keeps that S Pen protected. Now keep in mind that all of these cases don't protect your tablet itself, so the sides are going to be pretty much exposed. And then all three of them are going to have 4 speakers. So they're going to have a quad firing speaker system. All of them sound pretty good and kind of identical. I think they all sound pretty well rounded. They're not super heavy with the bass, but they're also not bad with the bass. And they're also not super tinny. So for the most part, I think they provide a very good listening experience when it comes to watching videos or listening to music. So, and they get pretty loud too. So I definitely like the speakers on all three of them. And as I mentioned, the first difference is going to be the power button with the fingerprint sensor on the Tab S8. It just gives you a physical fingerprint sensor instead of an optical one underneath the display on the Tab S8 Plus and the Tab S8 Ultra. Honestly, all three of them perform pretty well. They are pretty accurate. So, and I think the placement of the Tab S8 makes sense because honestly, I like using this tablet handheld a lot, so it makes it very easy to reach the power button and actually unlock it with my finger. Versus the Tab S8 Plus and the Tab S8 Ultra, I typically have these propped up a lot, so it ends up to the point where it's always on my right-hand side, so my thumb just naturally gets placed easily on that right-hand side and gets into the tablet really quickly. All three of them also have facial recognition. They all use the same ultra wide, so you get the same amount of angleness as far as where it detects your face. So all three of them perform really well when it comes to that. The Tab S8 Ultra does have the extra wide lens. I don't know if it's actually using that for facial recognition. If it is, it doesn't make much of a difference because all three of them perform really well when it comes to unlocking it. And if you set up both of those biometric features, then you probably won't have any issue getting into your device using biometrics at all. As far as performance, all three of them are going to have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, 8GB of RAM, and 128GB of storage. So you can kind of make the argument and say, well, if that's the case, then let me just get the smaller tablet. Well, no, because everyday usage will be a little bit different based on the size of the tablet you get, and also a little bit on the screen that you have. So while yes, you do get the same performance on the smaller and cheaper tablet, you might benefit from that bigger display. So first, I'll just say, like I said, performance, since they have the same specs, will be exactly the same. So there's no reason to say, get the Ultra over the S8 or get the S8 over the Ultra because you'll get better performance. No, it's going to be exactly the same. I will say that you do get occasional hiccups here and there, and I think it's mostly based off of One UI as well, since all three of them use One UI. So sometimes they can be a little bit stuttery, a little bit jacked up when it comes to the animations, but for the most part, you're going to get a very good experience. It's just every once in a while. Once you start to use the tablets for a long time, eventually they'll probably start to not slow down, but eventually you'll get lag once in a while here and there. So for the most part, One UI itself is also very well optimized for these giant ass tablets. It does a really good job of making UI elements easy to reach with such a big tablet. And it also makes it easier when you're actually using a mouse and keyboard. It makes it easier to navigate around, but either way, if you're using it handheld, it's definitely easier on the smaller screen, but it's definitely doable on these bigger displays as well. So like I said, your daily use will vary depending on the screen size that you have. So I'll be talking about a couple of things that I do on these tablets and helping you decide which one I prefer for that certain situation / scenario. So one of the main things I do on my tablets is watch a lot of content. So besides the screen sizes, there is one small difference with the Tab S8 being a different display type. So all three of them are going to be 1440p 120 Hz, but the Tab S8 is going to be an 11-inch LCD display versus the Plus that's going to be a 12.4-inch Super AMOLED display, and the Ultra is going to be a 14.6-inch Super AMOLED display. So the Super AMOLED displays are going to get you the best looking display you could possibly get. So yeah, the Ultra is going to be a little bit bigger compared to the Plus, but both of them are going to give you such a vibrant and deep black colored and super vivid and bright display. Compared to the S8, it's not bad. It's just not as colorful, not as vivid. It's not as like true to color as you can possibly get in a display, but it's still a really good display for sure. It definitely makes videos look pretty good. They make colors pop for the most part, but this just doesn't compare to the Super AMOLED displays of the Ultra and the Plus. And as far as the screen size, again, it's going to depend on whether you prefer a bigger screen for your content or a smaller screen. I prefer the bigger screen for watching content, so the Ultra is going to be the best thing for me since I'm always watching a lot of content. I love the bigger display on the Ultra. The Ultra does have smaller bezels, but it has a notch, and the notch doesn't get in the way at all. Whereas the Plus and the regular S8 that don't have a notch, but they have even bezels, slightly bigger bezels throughout the whole display. But the bigger bezels are nicer to hold too when you're using the tablet handheld compared to the Ultra that's definitely meant to be propped up a lot because sometimes you get some accidental touches when using it handheld. So overall, as far as watching content, I definitely think it's the best on the Ultra. The Plus is definitely that middle child with definitely the second best. And the S8, it's not terrible, it's not bad, but it's just not as good as the Super AMOLED displays of the Ultra and the Plus. So the other thing I tried to do was try to replace my laptop with one of these tablets. I'll be honest, it didn't happen. I tried with the Ultra, but it wasn't gonna work just because I use a lot of desktop apps, so I rely too much on those, so automatically I was not able to switch over to a tablet as my full laptop. Now, if your usage is mostly Chrome or web browsing stuff, or if you can get by replacing your desktop apps with Android apps, then potentially, yeah, either of these tablets can work for you because you also have Samsung DeX on here. So basically Samsung DeX changes the interface, the UI, to look more desktop-like, which allows you to pop up windows and split the screen to do a lot of multitasking and stuff like that. It's nice, it's cool, and it definitely helps if you have like an actual keyboard with a trackpad or a mouse and keyboard to try and do that. It's definitely a little bit more hard or not really practical if you're just using it on display with touchscreen, but it's definitely there if you want to use it. On the tablet mode itself, you also can multitask, so if you just want to multitask just for the hell of it on the tablet mode, you can definitely do so as well. I don't know, for some reason I don't find myself multitasking too much on these tablets. I have such a big displays on these that I wish I did. I ended up multitasking a lot on the Tab S8 because I would open up my two Notes apps, Samsung Notes and Google Notes, and use them both side by side. So Google Notes, I would keep like sticky note type of notes, and then the Samsung Notes, I would keep my like intensive actual notes. So it was interesting the way I decided to use these tablets, but all three of them can handle it, and depending on which screen size makes most sense for you, you can choose from there. And actually taking notes is one of the other main things that I would potentially do on these tablets. So all three of them, like I said, have the S Pen, so you can take physical notes if you want to. You can also key your notes if you want to. So personally, if you're gonna be doing a lot of your notes at home or at a single spot, the Tab S8 Ultra will be the way to go because you'll be getting a bigger canvas to take your notes. Even artists might benefit from a bigger canvas, but if you're gonna be taking these to school a lot, then either the Tab S8 or the Tab S8 Plus will be the way to go, just because they're a little bit smaller, so it makes it easier to pack in a backpack or sling bag or something like that to make it easier to take with you. And I also like the fact that if you are actually taking notes handheld, it's going to be so much easier on the Tab S8. Tab S8 Plus isn't too bad, but the Tab S8 Ultra is going to be a little bit harder to take notes handheld. So again, it all depends on which one will benefit you the most, but all three of them can handle Samsung Notes. All three of them can handle taking notes with a Bluetooth keyboard if you want to key them in. So I definitely like it on both of them. I definitely found myself taking a lot more Samsung Notes or more writing notes on the Tab S8 than I did on the Tab S8 Ultra. Tab S8 Plus, I would do it occasionally, but definitely a lot more note taking on the Tab S8. And sometimes I would try to game. I honestly don't game too much on my tablets. I prefer using like an actual console for that. So the only game I really played was Rocket League, and the only device I preferred playing Rocket League on was either my phone or I'd try to play it on a Tab S8, and it wasn't too bad on here. But If you're going to be playing mobile games, depending on the mobile game, if it's like one of those games that's best on a phone, it's likely not going to be that great on one of the bigger tablets because the elements are going to be just spread out throughout the screen. It's going to be a pretty much an oversized game of the phone version. So some games may not be very nice and very intuitive and nice on your hands. If you're going to be gaming with the bigger displays, or you want to game with streaming and connect the controller, 100% the bigger displays will be better, because if you're going to be using a controller, just get the biggest display to get the biggest screen to play on. But if you're going to be playing handheld a lot, like a lot of mobile games, like phone games essentially, the Tab S8 will probably be the best one to do that, because again, it's easier to hold in the hand, it's easier to reach all the different parts of the UI elements of a game and stuff like that. So as far as gaming, they can all handle it, but it just again depends on which screen size will work best for you. The last thing I did was just browse the internet. Honestly, there's not much to talk about here, but the only thing I want to mention is that if you do plan on using a lot of social media apps and potentially doing like shopping on here and using actual Android apps, keep in mind, as I probably already mentioned, that some of the apps aren't well optimized to work on a giant tablet or a giant display, so some of the apps may not look very pretty. So I definitely recommend using some of the actual website apps in like a browser. So Samsung Internet, using the desktop website, it looks much more natural than it does on the actual Android apps. On the Tab S8, you can definitely get by using some of the actual apps because it doesn't look that oversized, and you can actually use it in portrait mode more comfortably than you could on these bigger tablets. So at the end of the day, when it comes to the performance and software, it's going to be based on the screen size. As you could probably already allude to and figure out by the way I'm describing things as I'm mentioning different scenarios, the screen size is going to obviously benefit you if you're going to be at home a lot. So if you're at home a lot or in just one place, going to leave it at work or something, you're not going to travel with it, then the Ultra is going to be the way to go. Get the biggest display you can possibly get. If you're going to be traveling a lot, whether you're a student or you're at work, and you just want something portable or using it handheld a lot, then definitely get the Tab S8. It's going to be much more comfortable in hand and easier to travel with. And then if you're in the middle, you want a comfortable tablet to use handheld, a good tablet to use propped up as well, and travel a lot with it or just be at home with it at the same time, then the Tab S8 Plus is going to be the way to go because it's naturally the best middle one. It's such a good tablet in my opinion that I think this is probably the best one when it comes to getting best of both worlds, but if you're more specific on one side, then get the one that benefits you the most. And now touching on cameras, all three of them are going to be exactly the same. The only difference being that the Ultra does have an extra lens in the front, being the wide. So if you're going to be taking like regular wide shots of yourself on the front, then you're going to be getting slightly better quality. Otherwise, that's the only difference. All three of them have the ultra wide on the front, so you can get auto framing if you want for video as well. So honestly, that's pretty much it. On the back, you're going to get the same ultra wide and the same wide lens. So again, the photos that you take on these lenses or on this system, on these tablets, I like to describe them as just good, decent, mid-range phone type of shots. So they look pretty good. They're not terrible, but they're also not amazing, not anything to brag about. As far as video, you get 4K on the wide lens, and if you want to go all the way to 1080p, you can and use the ultra wide lens. So again, camera quality will be okay, and if you really need that wide lens on the front, then you have to go with the ultra. As far as battery, the Tab S8 has an 8,000 milliamp hour battery, Tab S8 Plus has a 10,090 milliamp hour battery, and the Ultra has an 11,200 milliamp hour battery. So yeah, you do get bigger batteries as you go up in the lineup, but it's all going to depend on your usage on your battery life. So for the Tab S8, I get about a day and a half to about 2 days because I'm mostly just taking notes on here. On the Tab S8 Ultra, I do a lot of media consumption, so I end up getting about a day's worth of battery. Tab S8 Plus, I'll be honest, I barely use it only because I'll use it when this is dead or when that's dead. So if my Ultra is dead, I'll use it for media consumption. If my S8 is dead, I'll use it for note taking. So it ends up just sitting around a lot, but when I do use it, it can get me about a day to a day and a half of battery life. So yeah, it's not a fair comparison because I barely use it, so that means the battery is barely being touched. So it's hard being a reviewer, not gonna lie, just because it's hard to use all these tablets evenly. I try to, but I honestly think you're gonna be getting good battery life on all three of these tablets, regardless of which one you pick. Obviously, it will depend on your usage as well, but as also charging, you get about the same speeds here. So they all use 45 watts of charging with USB-C. So roughly they take about an hour and 20 minutes to an hour and 40 minutes. So there's not much of a difference when it comes to the time, which is pretty crazy considering they're slightly different sizes in battery life. But if you do want to keep these for a long time, I definitely recommend protecting that battery. So turn on that feature to protect your battery and cap out at only 85%. So at the end of the day, which one should you be getting? if you couldn't tell, it's all going to depend on which size will benefit you the most in your daily usage. So if you want to be portable, take this with you everywhere and pack it up, or even use it handheld a lot, the Tab S8 will be the way to go. If you're going to be at home or in one place at all times, want the best and biggest display, S8 Ultra will be the way to go. Or again, if you're in the middle and you're going to be doing a little bit of both, then the S8 Plus will be the way to go. Personally, if I had to pick just one, it's going to be the S8 Plus. But for me, since I have all three, I'm going to be using the S8 Ultra as my media consumption tablet and the S8 as just my note-taking tablet. So that's pretty much it. I hope I helped you guys out with this. Trust me, it is pretty tough trying to review all three of these tablets because I want to use all three of them, but you know, they all have their own benefits and it's hard to pick just one. So I end up using two of them out of three, which is not too bad, I think. So that's been it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace.